Hey guys, welcome to another football scoop clinic here. We've got Coach Steele, who's won a couple state titles there in South Dakota at Pierre TF Riggs High School. He's going to talk about building a unique offensive identity. He does some really unique stuff on the offensive side of the ball with some unbalanced formations, and really one of the things that captured my interest was the no memorization part. So he's got some really unique stuff that he does. I want to give him the floor here. So Coach Steele, take it over, man.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. I said really excited to kind of show a little bit of what we're doing here, and just some of the unique things we do from formational standpoints and just from organizational standpoints, like he alluded to with our wristband system. So again, here's my contact information. If you want to request anything afterwards, don't hesitate to do so. Just a little bit about me. So this is my fourth season in Pierre. Coming from there, I was at Dakota State University as the offensive coordinator. We've done a lot of different things in my two places that I've called plays and organized the offense. So, this year was our crowning achievement, breaking the state record for points and yards in a season there. So, I think when I was applying for this head coaching job, I was 26 years old. I was really trying to find something that set me apart from other candidates. So, I'm an offensive guy, so I kind of thought about what we would want to be known for. And I think these four things on here are kind of what most coaches would say, but what I pitched myself on was being different, and being unique and being something that no one had seen before. So, what we ended up coming up with as a coaching staff after I'd gotten the job, is we wanted to be the hardest team that we could be to mentally prepare for, especially at the high school level. If you've taught kids, it's very easy to confuse them, especially when you take the coach out of the equation. Number two, we want to take as much time away from the opposing staff as possible. And then we want teams to have to play our game somehow, some way, and we do that through formations. So our overall goal was to be known for being unknown. We wanted teams to never exactly know what was going to be coming at them, and always have something in our back pocket. So some people have said our formations are crazy, but, when you're averaging 60 points a game and can put up some crazy yardage, then it's not so crazy anymore. Through this, I've got a couple books that have some stuff that are some different principles that, have kind of guided our philosophy. So these are the 4 points we'll talk about: making an identity, being able to change, empowering your players, and then being different. And this book, What Doesn't Kill Us, talks about Wim Hof. He's a crazy guy that lives in the ice. He's the Iceman. And he talks about the importance of cold showers, shocking the system. And that's kind of what we want to do, is we want to shock people's systems by letting them see something they're very unused to seeing in a football game. Okay, so our first one, coming up with an identity, and myself, I was an offensive lineman my whole playing career. And I've also been a science guy, so that's where that book comes in, The Brain That Changes Itself. But I think there's a lot more people that would grow up throwing the ball around pretending to be Tom Brady than ones that grow up hoping that they can be Joe Thomas. So there's always kind of been that negative stigma for the offensive line. And, I know here in Pierre, I've had a few, even at Dakota State, we had a few of guys who are linemen that say, oh, I'm a tight end, or, I'm a fullback. And when you push that kid to the O-line, he kind of feels like he's banished, and, he just doesn't always feel quite as excited to play as he was before. So one of the things we did is we created our overload offensive line. I know some other teams do it, but what we really tried to do was make a glorious O-line position. And our nub guard is what we call it. It's our short side guard. And that's the kind of the position where you want to grow up to play that position, because if you play it, you're not just a lineman, you're the lineman. And I said it really makes kids compete. It gives those linemen something to compete for once they are an offensive lineman, rather than just being tossed into the offensive line. So this is just kind of a look of our offensive line. So we've got our nub guard to the left there, the center, and then inside and outside guards and our tackle. And obviously from a coaching standpoint, there's a lot of different pros for this. At our size of a school, we've got about 850 students. We can always count on having one very good lineman, but we can't always count on having 5. And this gives us, between your inside and outside guard, those guys are 100% of the time going to have help. And then your tackle is so far away from the ball and the quarterback that usually you're able to, get through some of those pass rushes and whatnot just from being an extra gap away. So from a coaching standpoint, it's very easy to hide one or two guys, but at the same time, it also gives you something for those kids to compete for when they are offensive linemen, or, once they make the move to offensive line as a freshman or sophomore. That left, and right is just there. That's how our quarterback calls our overload. So our overload could switch play to play, but our nub guard will always be on that short side. So whether he's on the left or the right, he's always going to be that guy. All right, so then the last bit about it, again, kind of goes back to that first slide, where we really want to be the team that's very, very difficult to prepare for. We want to make it so that film's not going to be enough to prepare for you. We want your call sheet to look like Ben McAdoo's there, where it's like a 7-page flip folder that you've got to try and figure out what we're going to do on in about 30 seconds. We want to make you drop as many scout cards as humanly possible. And I'll get to it in a little bit here, but our formation wristband has 27 formations on it, and we use the same personnel grouping for all 27 formations. 19 of our 27 formations have a shift attached to it. So we can do all these different things using the same personnel grouping. So it's not like you're going to be able to know just based off of who's on the field what we're going to do. And then we also have the ability to play fast. We're obviously a no huddle team, but we can mix our tempo. We can go really fast. We can go really slow. Again, you never know what we're going to give you. And being quite honest, sometimes we don't know what we're going to give you right away. But we just love having as many options at our disposal as possible. Okay, this next quote was one of the most important ones, I think, to my coaching philosophy and everything. And it's kind of anti the way I was, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But the New Zealand All Blacks are one of the best teams or best programs of all sports history. And their coaching philosophy is when you get to the top of your game, change your game. And they do this to avoid the inevitable decline of that sigmoid curve. And this is all explained in Legacy, which is all about the All Blacks and their kind of leadership philosophies. But it makes a lot of sense. The more I thought about it, the more it really did make sense that, if we practice the same stuff, we're going to grow to a point. And, I think in one way, this really prevents you from getting content or being happy with where you are. So one of the ways we do that, and, I've presented this to even our state association, and, you can look at all of our formations, you can write them all down, you can put up a plan against them, but they could be entirely different next year. So, we keep our process the same. We run a lot of our similar plays, but we could have another 40 formations that we're going to throw out next year that we didn't use this year. So again, these ones right here are just our empty package, not even all of it, but a lot of our empty package this year. And, like I said, our goal is to find one matchup that we can abuse, and we'll formation however it is that we need to do it. So, like I said, none of this stuff changes our identity. If anything, it grows it, because it's just more things that our guys can take pride in. Because again, if your identity is being unknown, then really that's nice, because formation wise, you can put together literally whatever you want, and it's just going to build your identity. And, the fun part for us is our kids would come to practice on Mondays wondering what kind of crazy stuff we're going to put in. They'd come by my room for lunch, and we'd draw some stuff up on the board, and they never knew we could end up using it that week or the next week. And, it really just gives everybody a little bit more ownership of it, when it's not just, well, let's go see who else is doing this. Who'd we copy this from? It's, we're actually actively building this whole process as we go. And, this kind of goes right into one of those player meetings that we had. The picture here, our coaching staff had drawn this up, on our weekend, and we wanted to run option. Option's great because you don't have to block a guy. You get better angles. We presented this to the team on Monday, and our fullback goes, we could do that, but I just rather block. I'm just way better at blocking than if I get the ball. So just motion me across and I'll block. And we put it in, ran it 7 times for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns in our playoff games in 2018. And again, that was entirely, we wanted to run the play on the left. Our player said, no, let's just have me get one more half second of motion to get across, and we'll block it. And the rest is history. So, I think the cool thing about asking questions to players is you get perspectives from the player's perspective rather than just the coaches. But certainly it's obviously great to talk to some different coaches as well. I was fortunate enough to be on the AFCA 30 under 30 on its first year. And, listening to David Shaw talk, he talked that, he talks to Chip Kelly so much and gets a lot of ideas from him. And, if you're thinking of their two systems, they're really not alike. But he said you're never sure of what you're going to be able to gain from somebody until you just talk to them and see what works. And, I think the cool part about that, it was David Shaw wasn't looking to copy anything. It's, well, maybe I can take a little piece of this and use it in a different way. And, I think that that's just one of the ways that we can continually change and continually avoid that decline phase of that sigmoid curve. So Powering the Front Line, again, this is a great book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that one, but it's a great book for it. But this is going to bring us to our offense in a box philosophy. And again, we don't have our kids memorize a thing outside of just understanding how to read and how to read our coach talk. So, our wristbands are all position specific. So this one on the left would represent a fullback formation wristband. The one on the right would be the fullback's play wristband. And again, they have to know the signals, obviously, for what black is, what lasso is, what lazy is. But then after that, they're able to line up. And, if our fullback gets hurt, our backup fullback happens to play a different position, we can hand this wristband to him and he'd be able to make his own way and understand where he needs to be and what he needs to do. Same thing on our play wristband. You can see there's a few play names in there. There's a couple: dive left or veer left. But then you see some pass plays where 6 to 8 dig, and that's our drive concept. But our fullback is always going to run the 6 to 8 dig. So he doesn't need to know that play is called drive. He needs to know that if we call play number 3, he's going to run a 6 to 8 dig. And same thing on, let's see here, if you go down to number 15, that's our levels play. So he knows if he's number 1, he's going to run an 8-yard in. If he's number 2, he's going to run a 5-yard out. So again, it really takes the memorization component out of it for our players, which again, for our size of school is just very important because our guys have to play multiple positions. We're not a school big enough to have a true 2 deep. So, anything that we can do to take a lot of that memorization off the kids and put it on the coaches is something that we need to do. And, this is all done in Microsoft Excel. I know I've got computer program in there, so we'll see. I'm still working on trying to make something that can do this, but right now I just have it all linked in Excel to automatically update. And you can see on the little wristbands there, the D in the formation wristband, that ends up being our version. So that means that's our 4th version of that formation wristband for the season. And, I think 2 years ago we made it to all the way to version I. Last year we finished on version D. So, it's another easy way to make sure everybody's on the same page and that, they're not using formations or plays from 2 weeks ago. But, at the same point in time, this is great because we can really exchange and interchange things all the time. And the kids are never going to know. I mean, we could make lasso different every single week. And as long as the kids understand that what the formation signal is for lasso from the sideline, they can read and line up. And, it puts a lot of the organization on the coaches to have things right. But again, I think that as a coach, if I can make sure that I'm good and that I've got all of our stuff organized, then we know our kids can read and get it done. So it's a lot of fun. The cooperatively inventing language is a lot of fun for, all right, offensive linemen, when we're running dive, obviously there's 100 different ways that you can run a dive inside zone concept. And especially when you're in our overload line formation, you've got a bunch of different ways defenses can line up. What do you want us to call it? And, ultimately our offensive lineman said, well, let's just call it win inside. So that way we know we got to get our butts inside. We'll figure out the double teams from there. And, so our kids name that, our coaches didn't name that we just had talked about it with them and that's what they wanted. And, now they're able to make entirely sure they know how to figure that out. And then 1 post, 2 corner, that example of that would be if you're number 1, you're going to run a post. If you're number 2, you're going to run a corner. So just kind of teaching some of those abbreviations would be the main teaching points on it. And then again, this is what we consider our rules for our players on plays. Our tools are what we give them during individual drills. And, we say, use our rules as the guidebook, use your tools as your process to get there. And, our guys do a great job of problem solving on the field. We're not huge on telling them this is exactly how you have to do it, because what if they have a better way? If they have a better way, it'd make more sense to listen to them. So anyways, that's just kind of our offense in a box philosophy in a nutshell. Again, I could probably talk about it for well over an hour, but again, more than something I'm more than happy to take questions and concerns on. And this is kind of an example of some of our problem solvers. So for our dive play, again, our offensive line, like we said, their goal is going to be to win inside. For everybody else, for our quarterback and for our tailback in particular, we don't say it's a 12 dive or a 24 dive or anything like that. For dive, all it says for them is find the open gap, and find a gap that has either a guy playing two gaps that's responsible for it, or if there's an open gap like there is on that top left one and the bottom left one, find the gap without a defender and they're responsible for that gap. Or again, like I said, if there's a guy head up and he's a two gap player, run right at that guy as hard as you can, see which way he goes and pick the opposite. I think the two things that does is it really makes us hit the hole hard. And, like I said, if we're hitting it hard and our offensive linemen understand where they have to get their butt, then we're able to really hit holes or make little holes and then get through those little holes very quickly. Like I said, these are out of empty formations. So the beauty of these empty double tight formations is it's very hard for teams to keep their gap sound and keep their coverage shell. Here we do see a lot of teams that are playing in too high shells that don't want to leave too high shells. So it's a very good thing because, again, you have to give up one or the other. Either you give up your coverage shell to play all the gaps, or you do the opposite. So definitely a fun concept that our kids do, and it's fun to see them once they really learn it and communicate it at such a high level. It's just a lot of fun to watch those guys problem solve and then make things happen. So then our different part of our deal is flexibility, first and foremost. This year we had 2,000-yard rushers, 3 400-yard receivers, 14 different players scoring a touchdown. And again, that all goes to, you may know that, we have a really good quarterback or we have a really good running back, but you have no idea how we're going to use them. Like I said, our quarterback threw for 300 yards a couple games. He ran for 300 yards a couple games. Our running back had a couple 150-yard receiving games where he never even lined up in the backfield. Then he had a couple 200, 300-yard rushing games where he only lined up in the backfield. So, again, we want to be flexible enough to where we can do everything with one personnel. Our fullback's got to be able to play tight end. Our tight end's got to be able to split out and play receiver. Our tailback's got to be able to play slot receiver. And, we've even had a couple where our quarterback is slid out to receiver and we pulled our running back in or our tight end in and took the snap and either ran some power or some quick screens. So, we just want to be as flexible as possible, be able to do as many things with that same personnel as we possibly can. And then, again, with that offense in a box philosophy, again, there's no way to avoid your quarterback kind of knowing everything, but we're flexible enough where we can change a kid's wristband and change all of his jobs, and the kid's not going to know any different. Because, again, it really – we're giving them the guide. They're using their tools for whatever that's thrown at them out on the field. And that's just a way of looking at decentralized command, again, from those couple slides ago. But the biggest thing for flexibility is it really lets us add and change formations very easily and plays. And, like I said, there's not many things more fun for me personally in our system other than going to our Monday meetings with our players and having them ask what's new this week. What formations did we put in? What plays are we putting in? And especially if they sent us some ideas over the weekend, those ones that see their own ideas come to life, even if it's not the exact way that they sent it to us, if they can see their own personality inside of our system, it's so much easier for them to buy in and so much easier for them to take ownership in it. And Captain Class was the book that kind of talked about being flexible, and Hungary's soccer team really changed the way that soccer was played at the time back in the 50s, and it erased specialization and having those specific, you are only a forward, you are only a defenseman, and I think that's kind of what we're going for. We want our guys to be able to play multiple positions, and we want them to be able to do that by handing them a different wristband. But again, it's such an awesome system just to see how much the kids buy in and how much they take ownership of not only their own personal position, but of the offense as a whole. So now kind of looking at the overload in particular here, This is the same two formations just drawn up on the top with a normal offensive line and on the bottom with an overload offensive line. And, I think what you really see in this, or at least what I see in this, is that a defense really has to make some choices. And on that top, it's status quo. That's what it would look like more than likely if you're a normal team, how you would run those formations. On the bottom, when we slide everything over to the right, essentially, it's hard because now on the bottom, we have a short edge to the left. We can get to that edge in a hurry. So are you going to overplay that edge? How concerned are you about it? At the same point, if you move too many guys over, or are you going to leave a gap on that overload side? On the left-hand side, when we have an empty formation, again, you still have to be coverage sound. We're still 3-by-2. So, like I said, there's just so many different things. And, from our coaches on game day when we're play calling and doing all those things, we're really looking at what choices the defense is making. Because, again, if you're on top, it's status quo. We're not forcing your hand to make a decision. It's very easy to disguise a lot of these things. Like, again, both of those 3-man surfaces on top, you can kind of get away with, apexing. If you don't want to bring that strong safety all the way down, you could stay too high a little easier in that and kind of just play that Sam a little bit wider. But when you go down to the bottom, you can't do that anymore. Because, again, you're either going to have to pick, are you going to be worried about the short edge, or are you going to be worried about the pass or the long edge? So it just makes you have a little bit more thought go into your choices that you're making as a defensive coordinator. And then, again, our coaching staff, our job is to just figure out what choices you're making and then obviously to do the opposite. Kind of the last way that I'd say we're different from most teams is our use of analytics. And, again, we do this a lot. And I think that the most fun thing I think that we've come up with is, I ran this at DSU. We used analytics a lot. But what we've really geared more towards this last year was, finding the hot hand. We use it's a fantasy football metric. They use DVOA, so it's kind of one similar to that of OVOA, offensive value above the average. And play success, obviously. Play success is a pretty common one. But essentially, we assign point values to plays, and, you can use it to figure out the success of a play or formation against a front and whatnot. But really what we wanted to use it for the most this year was to figure out which player was generating the most points or the most momentum with their touches. So, obviously, if we're giving a kid 10 carries and he's averaging 0.7 points per play or points per touch, and we have another guy that's averaging 1.5, well, in the second half, it'd make a lot more sense to give that guy averaging 1.5 points per carry or points per touch the ball more. So, I think that was one of the ways that we really, really, really made a concerted effort this year to spread our touches in the second half. Was first half, kind of make sure we touch everybody a little bit and see who's doing really good and who's having a good game. And then the second half, we tried to identify that hot hand and ride them all the way out. But, I said there's just so many different metrics that are just fun. I said if you like numbers, you like statistics, it's a lot of fun to look at these different things and really see your growth, more than anything else from game to game. So I think that's probably the last way that we're different than a lot of teams on average. So again, just kind of a quick summary of the PowerPoint here before we jump into some film. Our identity, we want to create that sense of pride and belonging. We always want to plan for change. We want to be flexible enough that it allows for change at all times, and that we can always adapt whatever we're doing to whatever we're seeing and whatever we have. And we want to empower our guys. We want to decentralize our command, give our players guidelines and tools, and then let them trust them to get it done. And then D, it's tough. It's definitely daring. But again, it's what we sold ourselves on trying to get this job and trying to take this program over, was daring to be different in everything that we do. So again, there's my contact info. I can send this to you. I can give you whatever you need. But I said, well, we're going to go into some film now, so I probably won't come back to this slide again. Let me head to Huddle. Okay, so the bad part is we did not have end zone film this year because our end zone camera broke and we did not have money to buy a new one. So different problems everywhere, but we still have good tight or wide film here. So what we'll do is we'll go through formation by formation what we did this year. and some of our play concepts within each formation. And you'll see that, we don't really run a high variety of plays, but we do have a lot of different formations, and we go through a lot of different things in these formations. So, our first play, lasso, is essentially ace with an overload, and it's as balanced as we get. And the tough part, this is one of our most successful plays. It's just a simple play action boot pass. Our backside tight end will run a drive. He catches probably 75% of the passes on this. Our play side tight end, which is actually our fullback, does a slam flat. He'll catch probably the other 25%, and our receivers are glorified runoffs in this scenario, with the backside running the post and the front side running a go. Drop the snap here, still doesn't matter. Again, that backside tight end is the hardest guy to cover for a lot of reasons. Our whole premise of a lot of the stuff we do is to put pressure on the linebackers. Again, especially at the high school level, your DBs are going to be worried pass first. Your D-line is going to be worried run first. Your linebackers are going to be kind of depending on the formation, and in our balanced double tight with a running back, they're more than likely going to be looking run first. So again, thinking of our theory, we try to do the opposite, try and be unique. So we'll look at a couple looks of this play, and then we'll move along. Again here, this is right down the backside. This is the same team we played in the state championship game, just in the regular season. Again, you can see here, this is one of the teams that really does not want to leave their too high shell. So they leave that linebacker there, send him through. He falls over trying to jam, end up wide open in the middle of the field. Slide tackle. Again, another look here. Able to throw coming downhill. I think that's always the most important part for us, is on this rollout to make sure he gets his shoulders around and then throws coming downhill, not running away from his arm. But again, that our backside tight end on this is just a lot of times the one that's wide open. This is a freshman quarterback. This is more or less our freshman team in the game at this point. Another good play. Then again, one of the other things that we do is, pretty much over all of our plays that are really good, we've always got another answer that's looks essentially the same, but is just enough different to keep you honest. We ran this play maybe 4 or 5 times on the season, but it's play action boot with a throwback screen. So again, everything else looks like play action boot. We turn and throw it back, let our one stud lineman go back and clean up the mess, get our running back out in some space, watch him make something happen. So again, we didn't run this play a ton necessarily, but we just ran it enough to keep people honest. If we felt like they were starting to get the hang of our play action boot pass, then we'd throw this one in there, let them overflow to it, and then get our guy out the backside. This is probably my favorite play on film of the whole year, because it's the same thing. They're thinking they're going to come in and blow up the run. They actually cover our backside tight end. Nobody left. One more look at it. And you can see this one for us, it's with our center actually is the one pulling. Or I guess then this is screen, but we did pull our center quite a bit. And, like I said, I think the more you can let your kids have fun and let them problem solve, it's great, and when we get to a couple of the other ones, we don't even know who's pulling before the play, just with our overload. But we'll get to that in a sec here. But this is our veer play. It's a traditional inside veer out of pistol. Read the end man, down block. And, again, with this, we're running this one to the long edge. And, the good thing about running this inside veer with that overload double tight look is, if you're running it to the short side, it's almost a midline sometimes if we don't have a tight end. If we did run this to the right in this case, which we don't, it'd be a true inside veer because our tight end is where a tackle would be. And because we run it to the left, this is actually almost an outside veer concept in terms of where we end up actually reading this. And again, you can see they just have to collapse down so hard to get there that it makes it a real easy read for our quarterback to get out on the edge. Okay, on this one here, we do take that short side read, so it is a true inside veer here. Reading a gap or a defender 2 gaps away. And again, this goes to hitting the hole quick, getting that first cut and getting out. Quarterback running up there thinking about making a block. It was good stuff. But again, you know, we don't run a lot of option. We like to try and get it in there when we can. But, you know, more than anything else, I just think this is a very easy play, and it gives you actually 2 different looks because, again, if you're running an inside veer, it's usually going to be your defensive end. That's your read off or your handoff read. And then if you ran the triple version, you'd have a pitch guy outside where when you go to that outside view, you're usually reading one more guy out. So sometimes it's an outside linebacker that's got to run his way down to the dive. Okay, again here, running this to the short side. You can see the open gap there. We got a tremendous angle. Probably should have kept this one, but because we hit it hard, we're still able to run through this and find a backside hole. Not overly disciplined there on defense. Then we're able to get through and run. Skip ahead here to that next play. Oh, this is still veer. Sorry. All right, so then when we looked at our formation wristband, we had shifts built in there. And like we'd said, you know, probably 2/3 of our formations have a shift built in. So this is our formation lasso again, which is just ace with our overload. But we have a shift built in. So when he says shift, we end up shifting our tight end trades over. Our other tight end drops back to a wing, and our running back goes out to a slot receiver. So if you do the math, that means we've added essentially 2 blockers to the left-hand side. You can see here they don't really adjust. They kick their coverage over. But again, when we're looking at what we're trying to accomplish, you know, if they're going to kick their coverage over, that doesn't help them be able to defend the run on this side. If they had kicked their front over and not their coverage, then that wouldn't have helped them defend the pass. So we're giving them, 3 to 4 seconds to adjust their whole defense, and they're not able to do that. So, you know, the easiest thing for us to do right here, now that we've added 2 blockers to the left, would just be catch the ball and run to the left. So that's what we do here. Bring the couple linemen rolling around the edge. Broken tackle at about 7, and then the rest is history. But, you know, again, if we get to 7, 8 yards before we're getting touched, obviously you're in pretty good shape for the rest of the way.
Hey, Steve, in that instance on that play there,
Yep.
After you shift, you just have one. You have one play call in.
Yep.
I'm guessing, and you stick with it. And if they were to bump the front over, would you have sent in a pass, or what do you do there?
Pretty much our quarterback knows we've got sweep called here, so he knows that if they don't shift their front over, then we're going to run sweep. And probably what we would have had in is if they do shift the front over and cover this down, then we would have switched to an Omaha call, which would have just been our pass play for this play or for this formation. So he just knows we'll always stick with the run first. And if they do adjust over, then he'll adjust the play to the pass play. But because they don't, he just takes the run play here and gets out on the edge with it.
So it's a real if then kind of philosophy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. And as far as 10 of our 11 players don't even worry about that at all. It's literally just the quarterback. Again, that's our one position where, you know, I don't think it matters what you do. You're going to have some thinking involved with your quarterback. And then here's another look at it. So again, we shift over. There's literally no movement here. So again, option number 1 is catch the ball and run to the left. Got our center looping around. Kind of gets a double block here. And again, the fun part about this, once we get onto the edge, is, you know, we really put a high emphasis on all of our ball carriers running, that you've got to hit wherever that hole is as fast as you possibly can. We're not going to slow play and look for a cut. We're going to hit the hole as hard as we can. And if we come through on the other side, then we can try and make some cuts. So he's out here in a hurry, sees that block, dips back underneath. Again, able to get around. But, you know, obviously it just helps having some really good athletes too. Next formation's our line. So all we did in this formation is now our fullback is at a sniffer position instead of as an attached tight end. And then our tight end is now on our nub side. Split. Our guy calls this one off. Split is a play where it's basically a true split zone. Looks like our center called it off and pulled him down. And again, this is a great example, even though we don't run this the way the coaches designed it we gave them the guidelines and they use the tools to make this work. So, our center here is the one that calls and says, hey, you come down, fight through the hole, and I'll pull out to the end. And we end up hitting what ends up being, it looks like a backside cut, even though that's technically not how we designed it. But I said that's the great thing about this system is it really gives the kids a lot of power to be able to find ways to do different things and, make plays work in ways that maybe we didn't even think they'd work. So again, here's another one, ends up doing the same idea here, pulls our fullback through the line of scrimmage rather than out to the end. And we get a nice little seam here on that play side. All right, this next play, lazy, so it's the same formation as the last one now, except for now we've moved our running back out to slot receiver. And I think anyone, if you're a defensive guy that looks for tendencies, I would say probably 90% of the time when we motion our creep motion here with our fullback, we run some form of run play with our quarterback right behind it. The only pass you're probably going to see other than that would be a run action, and we throw the bubble out here to our running back who's at slot receiver. But 5 times on the season we mixed this play in, and 4 times on the season we scored. And again, it's just we get that guy to dip down and get that middle of the field wide open, toss it right over the top to our tight end. And again, this works particularly well out of this because our running back, our T, is out here at slot pulling this safety over. We still have a tight end here to maintain this safety. So this is really the guy that they struggle to cover. And if they did, they had to bail him back, and then we'd probably want to run the ball. But not a bad first play of the game in this case. But again, we're able to play with our tendencies and then pick our poison when we want to hit it big. Same idea here. Slide him over, run our tight end right down the middle. This one, the safety sees it, but it's a little too late. Still able to get over the top on him. Okay, so now back to our dive play. This was one where, we had in that PowerPoint where we just said, we kind of tell our guys to find the open gap or to find the 2-gap defender and run as hard as you can right at them. So, when we're looking at this, the 2-gap guy is on the left-hand side. It's this defensive tackle right here. I know it's hard to see on the wide film. Sorry for that. But that's their 2-gap guy. So he's going to run right at him. Sees him disappear to the outside. Creases it right through the middle there. And from there on out, it's just summer strength and conditioning, and our guy's pretty fast. But again, it's an easy system where when we start this play at this point, really most of the linemen don't necessarily know where the ball's going just yet. But our quarterback knows what he's looking at, and he's just going to take off running. And again, this was not even our starting quarterback at this point. Same idea here. Now, this was, again, going back to us being unknown. This is an opponent that tries to get creative in how they stop it. So, we have, as far as their defensive linemen with a hand down, we have the edge on both of them. They put a lot of linebackers in the game traditionally. And again, here our guys loop this one. So we actually have a little short pull here. But again, these are all the same play call. And our guys are just able to try and make work whatever it is that they think they're going to make it work. So, they know that they have to get their butts on the inside. And if they want to use their angles and run some of these folds and slips, they're more than able to do so. And again, they do a lot of good things. And, I think that's the fun part about watching some of this film is, if you weren't sitting here listening to me, you wouldn't know that some of these plays are actually the same play, but they are. Our drive concept route, this was the one on our wristband that we saw 6 to 8 drag out of our fullback. So again, we've got 2 drags with our tight ends, our tailback will be out in the flat. And then we've got a post and a go over the top. And again, this really makes it tough on those guys covering our tight ends because you've really got to be able to see that coming across the field. We run a lot out of this formation. But, like I said, we want to have as many people crossing and moving around, just making communication issues for the defense. Because again, from what we've seen against our formations, the most common mistake is teams just flat out screw up communicating and leave somebody wide open. So the more ways that we can try to find formations and motions and all these different things to make that happen, the better. Again, you can see it here. Runs right down. Everyone comes across on the fullbacks route. Probably could have thrown our other tight end over there, but he still sees this window on our backside in. Pretty good window. Bad throw actually makes this go a little longer. So anyways, out of the flare now is our next one. I know I've just got a couple clips of all these. If you want more, again, not a problem. Our flares, again, our play action play or passes out of this were fantastic. So flare is one of them. Again, usually with our play actions, we try and hit our tight end right down the middle of the field. Here, we end up swinging it out to our fullback or our tailback in motion, get our big boys out in front of them. And again, put a player in space where he's got a lot of room. Obviously, you can see the field was in tremendous shape in this game. So if we got anyone in space, we felt like we'd have a good chance to make them miss and make them slip or anything like that. But this ends up being a great play for us the whole season. And I will full out admit this one, again, came from our center, number 74, more than likely because he wanted to pull. Here's another look at it. Oh, no, this is our play action jet. Sorry. So this is the one that last one's off of. Pull him across with the motion. Put the tight end right up the middle of the field. Put it up. Give him a chance. Let him make a play. Obviously we do run some of these just straight gives with our running back here. We've run some power read with this motion. But, again, like I said, we try to hit these play actions. We've got our receiver on this tight end side coming on a slant to hopefully give him that half of the field against a safety or a linebacker, whoever ends up covering him. And our quarterback just knows to put it up in the air and give him a chance to make a play. Same look here. He sees the guy's hips go out, so he takes the inside path. Quarterback does a great job in the pocket. Again, same idea, both off that same motion. All right. Okay, going ahead. Omaha's another. This is that one that out of our lasso shift formation, this would be a lot of times our fail-safe pass play if we wanted to audible. And it's pretty easy. It's a mirrored concept. 5-yard out, corner, seam, corner, 5-yard out, obviously not to scale. But again, with a lot of two high teams, it makes it really good just to have those 3 deep routes. We've got really, really good. Looks like our outside guy ran the wrong route even, but it's the first game of the year. Another one here, Omaha. Great example here against teams that really want to stay too high against us. As soon as that guy makes his move, that safety takes the middle route, we know we've got the corner over the top. All right, moving ahead to gap. Gap is our quarterback trap. So trap and gap are the same play to us. Trap just means we're going to hand it off. Gap would be our quarterback. And the fun thing with these ones is we don't ever know who's pulling until we snap the ball. Again, with our overload, we have no idea where a team's going to put a defensive tackle some of the times. So, on our wristbands that are position specific, our outside linemen have one wristband and our inside 3 linemen have another. The outside one would just say down to right on this case. We're on the ball to the left-hand side, so it'll say down block to the right. And then our inside 3, it'll say down right or pull the left D end. And it's up to those 3 to figure out who's got the best angle to pull. Again, we leave a lot of it up to them, but obviously using common sense, if you have a guy to your right, you down block. If you don't have a guy to your right, you're probably the pull guy. And that's what it is here. You can see our center's the guy. We pull him. He's able to get around, get to a good block, get our guy through the hole. Then it helps having the athlete again. Look at a couple of these ones. Again, same type of idea. Our center ends up being the one pulling here. Everyone else goes down, hits the hole hard. Speed takes over from there. One more look here. This one, our center still is the one pulling. The guy he's pulling to ends up coming inside, so our center does a great job turning it into a log, and we have the edge, and it almost looks like a sweep play, but again, this is just our trap play, and when their guy slides inside, then that just makes it even easier to get all the way to the edge. Okay, and this is another example of where that he would be planning on that, because this trap guy would actually be all the way out here off the ball. So we'll down block everybody. Don't even need to pull anybody. Get out onto the edge. All right, so when we get to our quad formation, this is a fun one for us. It's a double tight quad. So we've got our fullback at tight end here, our actual tight end, our running back, and then our two receivers. Quad rules, again, it's something that you've got to put a specific rule to it. It's very hard to play just in normal traditional coverage unless it's man. And, you know, a lot of teams, when they don't exactly know what they're going to do, we've always got this quick screen option available. We took it a little bit less than we did in the years past just because some of the teams know that we're going to run this four-wide formation, but it's always still there. It's an easy thing to check to. We actually got it to the point where it was just a hand check and the line doesn't even know. We just catch it and turn it and throw it out there. But again, if we're even with the numbers out there and we can get to a one-on-one 3 or 4 yards downfield, we'll take this every time. Our tight end will work to get out there. Again, at the very worst, it's a solid run play. One more quick look at it. Again, we'll end up being 2-on-2 to block. Get it to our receiver, make him make a dude miss, even though that's not the one he should have made miss. Get him out on the edge running. All right, so same idea, dive out of this formation. We're going to find the open gap, and we're going to run at it as hard as we can. He sees the open gaps over here. Even when this guy cheats in, he's running at that gap. So then once this guy slides inside and actually gets clotheslined by our tackle over here, then he's able to adjust his path and get outside. And then from there, we've got a lot of green grass. So again, I think that's the best part about our dive play is that our dive play isn't designed to hit anywhere other than where the defense gives us. And, you know, you can't really quantify that by saying it's, you know, the old school numbering system, 12, 14, 16, whatever dive. It's you're finding the guy that's covering two gaps or the gap that has no guy in it, and that's where you run the ball. So the same idea here on top. They actually have two guys in that outside gap and no one on the inside gap, so he runs right at it. That guy on the outside can't get back in time, and then it's already too late. So again, you know, and this is a common thing that we see out of this double tight quads is teams are so reluctant to go corner over that they'll leave their corner there, and he almost just ends up kind of doing nothing if it's a run play. And then if it's a pass play, this linebacker would do nothing. So, you know, if they're going to double waste guys, then, you know, just why wouldn't we just do this and be able to run the ball on them? Okay, one more look here. You can see the open gap over to this side, huge open gap. So this guy's obviously responsible for pretty much at least two gaps, maybe even three. This guy's their safety. So again, in this situation, they have a safety and a corner to cover one guy. They've got two guys responsible outside here, so we'll just catch it and run right inside that gap. As soon as that linebacker picks out, he knows where he's got to run, and we're able to get through the hole pretty easy again. So again, even though he doesn't know exactly which hole, he's looking at number 42. Once he takes it outside, he knows he can run to the inside. Okay, this is that same drive play just out of that empty. And this is a really, again, these are all absolute routes. So our actual tight end's got the shallow drag. He's got the deeper drag. He's in the flare, post and a go. And again, this is really tough because you've got a lot of things coming to this side, and we're able to slide our actual tight end underneath everybody, running to the side of the field all his own. So it's a pretty slick little play, really good third down play for us. Okay, trade. This is one. I actually just put it on our South Dakota Coaches Association Twitter last night. This was our by far our best red zone play as far as the pass game goes. And it's a pretty simple one again. We've got slant, slant, into the flat, and then a corner. And then up top, we've kind of got a little speed out. But again, he's realistically not our best option here. But we've got a lot of windows. And again, there's just so many people crossing and moving around. And it's a quads formation. And there's just so many different things for the defense to think about. It's very hard to cover. It's good for our quarterback because he's always got two window options with the two slants. You can see here he could have thrown either one of them, obviously. And, you know, this is one of the great plays because we feature our tight ends so many different ways with our play action game and our drive route and all these middle routes that their teams are so worried about them when we take them vertical that we can usually slide someone right behind them and get him uncovered. So another look just on the opposite side formation. Again, you can see that he's got two window options here. As our tailback, which is number 3, goes out, pulls that guy. Here's option number 1. And if he did miss that, again, if you have a young quarterback that doesn't see that as easy, there's window number 2 to the number 2 or the number 1 receiver, the second guy coming through on that slant. One more look. There's window 1. There would be window 2. All right, so this is probably my favorite formation. This was one of the ones drawn up. We only got, I think, 1 or 2 left here. But this is an empty bunch formation. So there's 11 gaps. Everyone is close enough where they should be having a gap. And we have all 10 players on the line, or, on the line or immediately off the line. So we should have 11 gaps for defenses to account for. We also have 5 receivers because we are in an empty formation. So this was a really, really good formation for us. If you remember our Omaha route, which is simply 5-yard up, corner, go, that's one of them. This play in particular is our wheel, in which case all we do is change number 2 to the 5-yard out, and then number 1 wheels up after he gets out. So just those 2 plays alone were, 50% of our plays in this formation, and then our other 50% is the sweep play, which we'll get through here in a second. But again, we wheel it up. And honestly, in this play, if there's anything I'd say, you should just run the ball. But again, our receiver gets right by their DB, able to go get a big gain. So this is our sweep play. This is exactly the one that we had in the presentation, the PowerPoint, where our fullback's like, let me just go around the corner and block, screw this reading stuff, and me carrying the ball. So we motion them across. Again, we've now added a blocker to the right side. They've adjusted nobody. So it is just student body to the right. We've got bodies aplenty coming through the hole. Contacts made about 10 yards downfield. They don't get him down, so he gets to take it 70 more. Back to wheel here. Rolls out to the edge a little bit. Sees that their guy lets him go. Doesn't have to be a beautiful throw. Still a solid 25, 30 yards. I think this one goes up top. Rolls it out. Again, corner releases. Drops it off 20 yards. Okay, here's Omaha, the other version, back to the other way, where 1's got the 5-yard out, 2's got the corner. You can just see this huge gap coming. Again, they want to stay in that 2 shell. So this gap right here is the one that ends up being exposed. You just got to find this safety that's covering the trip side. See if he runs with the seam or the corner. He's backpedaling, obviously going to be taking the seam, so we can drop it over to that corner. Go gain some more yards. Back to the wheel formation, or the wheel play. Bringing him across. Again, bringing him across really sucks that corner up. Can just drop it right over the top. Another 20-yard gain. A couple looks at the sweep now. Again, we get motion. This one, their guy actually does a great job taking the outside gap here and forcing this inside. But we get 2 linemen through that gap to the inside, and our quarterback's still able to get through 2. So even though that they do force that one inside, our guys do a great job realizing that and just turning up. Here's a couple good looks from the state championship. This one, they're in a cover two, but it's the unique part about this is they try to run their cover two, but because they're not on the sideline, most teams in a cover two, they're probably used to where this hash is being the sideline. So he forces them inside and then kind of loses track, and we're able to throw the ball right on the other side of them. So we're really able to make a lot of space to the outside and then utilize it very well through this formation. Again, they shift over their safeties, but it's just so quick a motion. That's one of the best things about motioning out of this formation is you can go side to side with either our tailback or fullback really quick because they're bunched. And even though it doesn't seem like you're adding a ton, I mean, again, to any offensive line coach, we're by far plus to the left now, especially outside. So very easy catch, run the ball to the left, and you can even tell some of these guys don't know who they're gonna block right away because they just don't know who's gonna show up. And like number 2 does a great job. Sees him going there and just turns back, finds a safety, and all of a sudden we've got an easy walk into the end zone. So again, this is a great formation because you can run or throw out of it. You can motion and change gaps very easily. You still have 5 receivers, 5 viable options to throw the ball to. And if you've got a mobile quarterback, you can really do a lot running the ball with them too. One more look at an Omaha here. Same idea. They press that guy inside, then they just kind of let him go. We're able to get the ball to him wide, turn up the field. We're looking, again, 8 or 9 if he's tackled at first contact. All right, last 2 formations here. We just got some random ones that we put in. Earlier we talked about Monday morning meetings just coming in and our kids being excited to see what kind of crazy stuff we're going to throw up. So we put in 2 linemen. This is the only time we ever sub would be if it's a short yardage or goal line. In this case, we subbed in 2 linemen. We subbed out both of our outside wide receivers. And if a team doesn't sub in 2 defensive linemen, we're going to catch the ball and run forward because physics should be on our side. So both of these fullbacks are just offensive linemen. Our quarterback is slid out there. Our running back's taking the snap. And again, we're talking about having 2 260-pound linemen running forward. Should be able to create a pretty good hole for us. They do a pretty good job, but that's pretty simple. As we're chugging 2 big dudes into the game, if the other team's not chugging 2 big dudes into the game, we're just going to run the ball straight ahead. Then this one was one that everyone just loved because it was so stupid. Our center's right here. This is our fullback as a tight end. Then we have 6 linemen and our other tight end over here. So, again, it's just see how many guys we can move out of the way to run quarterback sneak. We probably should have ran this a little bit more to the left, but you can see we actually did run this earlier in the game where we were back, I think, about the 5, and we do just run the ball to the left because, again, you can see they're very concerned right at the center to the side, so and it still doesn't matter. We're able to sneak this one in from 6 inches out. But just these different formations really allow the kids to have a lot of fun. And, like I said, that's what it's all about. So, that's the little film clips that I had. Go back here. So again, that's my contact information. If you're curious about any of the stuff that we're doing, from the analytics to the offense in a box to the unique formations, then just let me know. So always excited to learn from everybody else as well. So I appreciate Football Scoop for letting me talk a little bit about our govs and about our offense here, and really appreciate all the work you guys are doing while we're on this hiatus of everything.
Yeah, you bet, Steve. There's a lot of good stuff there, man. You and your offensive staff have to be the most hated people in the state by the defensive coaches, man. Just everything you give them to think about is got to have them pulling their hair out. And especially for offensive guys, the worst thing that you can do as a defensive guy is create doubt going into a game plan. That's essentially what you guys do week to week, which is awesome. So I had a couple questions. Base run play wise, are you you didn't say you were a heavy veer team, but how many base runs do you carry week to week?
Essentially, we've got a dive, which we're man. We don't run zone schemes, so we're man. It's a dive play. We've got a trap play, and we've got a veer play and a sweep play, and that's it.
Gotcha.
And a trap, we just called it a different play for quarterback or running back, but they're both the same.
Skill set wise for your quarterback, do you prefer that guy to be a dual threat guy with everything that you're doing with him running, or is that something you feel like you can develop, or Are you pretty adaptable to that guy's skill set?
I think the one thing that we've been very adaptive with our quarterback is our formations. I mean, our first 2 years, we had a very, very prototypical pocket passer. He was actually drafted in the Major League Baseball draft a couple of years ago. He had a cannon arm, and we did utilize a lot of those quad formations, a lot of empty formations to throw the ball. And then now if we have the mobile guy, we can use those to run, and then we can play action out of our under center run play, or not of our under center, out of our running back in the backfield play. So, it's kind of a little backwards of, going to empty to run with a mobile quarterback and then going to a run formation to pass the ball, but at the same point in time, I just think you're so flexible, because when you do go to those empty looks, and especially those 4 receiver quad looks, it's just so tough for defenses, because, you don't see that a lot. So you've got to make a special package for it. But, I think that I'd prefer a mobile guy if I could, but, our first 2 years, you can't pass up arm talent like that either.
Right. Speaking O-line wise, what if you have a center that just can't snap and pull? Do you is that something you're drilling all the time, so you're developing it, or what happens if you get that guy that just can't snap and pull?
Well, one of the things I think we do a great job of, and our offensive line coach does a great job of, is we have a lot of guys snap a ball. We don't just have one. I mean, obviously in the game, in the season, you want just one guy to take your snaps when the game matters. But, we're trying to make sure we've got 4 guys ready to snap. And, if 3 or 4 of our starting linemen can snap, then that's a good situation, because in my mind, if our center gets hurt, I'd much rather trust moving one of our starting guys that plays to center, because we know he's good and ready, and then pull in one of those younger guys that's coming in off the bench to go play a position that's got a little less pressure. So I think that's the big thing we do to develop that, is we force everybody to be taking snaps. And obviously some guys, like you said, are not very good at it. But we just have so much cross training among our offensive linemen that most guys are able to kind of pick it up and go. And, through our team sets all week, when we're running team plays, we're cycling in different linemen almost every other play, between just switching positions and then obviously moving guys into center and moving them off the bench.
Gotcha. How many teams are treating that inside guard just as the new center? You seeing a lot of guys that'll just shift the nose over one, or their one tech over to one, and if you're seeing that a lot, what's the price a defense pays to do that when you see that?
4-down teams, I don't know that a ton of them do necessarily. Some do, but 3-down teams, we didn't play a bunch of them this year. But yeah, 3-down teams, they all pretty much slide over to that inside guard. And to me, that's a huge advantage, because now our center's uncovered. And, if they don't do that, then they're just out-gapped up the yin-yang to that overload side. So they kind of – a 3-down team – if you're playing constant 3-down defenses, there's just huge value in doing that, because double tight is hard enough for 3-down teams. But then you shift everything over a gap, and now you're going to free your center. And then it really gives you – with their outside linebacker and D-end, it kind of makes them make a choice of, do I put him right next? Because otherwise, he's going to be one gap away from your center if you don't have a tight end, So do you want to move him that far, that close, or do you want to switch gaps and have him play outside the tight end like he would normally? So I just think it makes a lot of choices for the defense, and again, that's our main goal, is we go into everything with, okay, if they choose this, here's our play set. If they choose this, this is our play set. We don't necessarily have a whole bunch of, this is 100% what we want to do against this team. It's more so, okay, so when we go to this empty bunch formation, if they're going to be in a cover 2, yeah, let's toss the ball outside, use that space to the outside where we're going to have an outside edge on them. And if they want to put guys way back and give us the edges and we can motion across, then yeah. So that's a lot of what we're trying to do as the coaching staff during the games.
Mm-hmm. So another thing I think a lot of high school coaches will think about as they're watching this was, how hard was it for you guys to teach your wide receivers who's on the line and who's off, and when that isn't happening? Was that really tough for you guys to communicate to them, or not really?
No, on our formation wristband, I guess I could have put an example of one of those up for the receivers, but for our outside receivers, it'd be like a number 1 L off. So that would tell them they're number 1 on the left and they're off the line. Or if it's number 2L on, then they're number 2 on the left on the line. So again, we've tried to dummy proof it as much as we possibly can. And they all know, I mean, that's something we take very seriously. If you are off the ball and you're supposed to be on the ball and we get flagged, one of 2 things happened. Well, sorry, one of 3 things happened. We're wrong and we'll apologize. 2, you have an older version of the wristband, which shouldn't happen because it means you lost yours. Or number 3, you didn't read your card. And, you know, like I said, it's a way for us to put all that back on the kid and say, look, we're giving you what you need to do. You just have to do it, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that. Thanks a lot, Coach Steele, for joining us, talking some ball. Really appreciate it. I think a lot of coaches will see a lot of value in this, man. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
thanks.